Hello everyone, my name is Thomas McGuigan and welcome to Terrier TV. So I am joined here by my friend Kevin Kowalik.
How are you doing today, Thomas?
I am good, how about you?
I'm doing good, I'm better than ever.
So today we'll be talking about the Power Rangers reboot and overall what we thought about it. So Kevin, what did you think?
Well, in my opinion, seeing the Power Rangers reboot, I felt like there was a lot of parts that I loved about the movie. The script was briefly written. It had pretty much a good explanation about, talking about different characters and what their problem is,
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I definitely agree with that. And overall, I thought this film portrayed a very important lesson in daily life that everyone should consider, which is the conflicts that high schoolers face in their everyday lives, where if it's bullying, teasing, or whatever, and how they can overcome that by joining a group of friends who could help them go through that. And these 5 Power Rangers in the movie had major problems. Some of them weren't good in subjects, but all of them were severely bullied by the teachers and students, and they need to bond together somehow to cope with that. And eventually, once they become the Power Rangers, they have a new responsibility to protect the world. And they had to throw behind all of the problems they faced in the past. So I thought that was a very interesting idea.
Yeah, and I also agree to you, you talking about the different people and the 5 Power Rangers, but, they're modern day high schoolers, but, each of them has their own problem, whether it could be, sport involved or pretty much, being smart. People will get bullied about that. What the movie is just trying to explain about, fitting in, trying to define yourself as a person, and I feel like, people are still going through this today to just fit in and just, not pretty much be underestimated or being taken for granted, but just knowing that they are worth and they can, make a change for other people and the people around them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and especially with things like the Tyler Clementi case, but let's not get off topic. So one thing I thought was great was the fighting. What did you think?
I felt like the fighting was pretty good. What I can explain about the fighting, it was just clean, but pretty much it just involved so much blocking and, pretty much with the holograms and, going down to the.
Especially oh my God, the Black Ranger loved to mess around with those.
Exactly.
That's how he got hurt.
Exactly. Like he pretty much messed around with the Megazords, like the dinosaurs. Just pretty much going down through the streets and, just wrecking havoc. And as soon as just getting back, he pretty much just, at least he just didn't hurt anyone, like any of his fellow mates or Alpha 5 in general.
Well, he did destroy some land, though.
Yeah, it's true. He did.
Oh yeah, that guy's an idiot anyway. Well, not the real person.
Yeah, well, he got in trouble though.
Yeah, the acting was so good. It did feel very childish because that's what the original appeal is, like all the comedy and everything. But it was also serious at the same time. Like, you're in this situation now. It is something to kind of joke about if you're good enough to fight.
Mm-hmm.
But these Power Rangers took it seriously this time, and these actors, I have to say, are some of my favorites.
Exactly. I felt like the acting in general was, it was self-explanatory, but, each of them have their own roles about, making a difference and just, making sacrifices. So I felt like those were the key points of this whole movie.
Yeah, and what did you think about Elizabeth Banks as Rita Repulsa, the arch nemesis, and Bryan Cranston, Zordon?
So going first to Elizabeth Banks, I felt like her acting was pretty good. Recent from her experience in like other movies like The Hunger Games, I felt like, she just had it in her that, she just took the role of Rita Repulsa in one shot. She had the emotion, she had the feeling, but other than that, everything was in there. And that's what pretty much you can enjoy about.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree. Like, this Rita Repulsa is just as good as the Mighty Morphin one, but the thing I like more about her is that she's very seductive and she sounds very creepy, like she wants to pull you into her wrath and just take you over.
Right, pretty
much. Because that's what Rita
Repulsa
is supposed to be. Like, she is psychotic, but at the same time, she's very, like, evil and wants to draw people in.
Right.
And yeah, overall I thought she was good. Bryan Cranston, oh my, his performance as Zordon was so great, even though he was playing a voice.
Exactly.
But he's been involved with the Power Rangers franchise even since way back in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers days. And his performance, oh my, it was great because his voice sounded very powerful as if he was the controller of the Power Rangers. And even though he was on another lost planet, he could still connect with Earth and the Power Rangers overall.
Yeah. You know, I actually I like Bryan Cranston's acting as Zordon. I mean, you know, he had it in him. You know, in the beginning, like you saw him in person, but then later on as the movie went, you know, you only saw him in the hologram form. But, you know, pretty much, you know, the difference between, you know, Zordon and the character Jason Scott, also known as the Red Power Ranger, I felt like, you know, they each had to make sacrifices and they made mistakes by, you know, losing one of their own members, whether with Zordon's team or with Jason, like throughout the movie, when all the 5 Power Rangers are, you know, kidnapped by Rita Repulsa, you know, looking for the Xeon crystal, which was the key point of, you know, making her powerful monster Goldar by just consuming large pieces of gold to just, you know, pretty much destroy the whole town of Angel Grove.
She didn't want to only do that, she wanted to take over the whole entire world.
Exactly, you know.
Actually, yes, that's a definite point, but she was the former Green Ranger, as we know.
Right.
Because she had the green crystal in her staff.
That is true.
But she uses that in an evil way now. And yeah, overall, that was very interesting, and that was a memory refresher for me. And so was Zordon, a former Red Ranger. Yeah. Another thing I thought was very interesting was how the reboot was done in terms of the description of the characters this time. Not in terms of the old one, though.
Right.
I mean, it is based off the old one, but it was slightly different this time. Overall, I thought my favorite character was pretty much the Blue Ranger, Billy Cranston, and it was named after Bryan Cranston, by the way.
Yeah.
And I thought he was just my favorite character because he's like the smart guy. He's a straight A student. He's kind of like me in a way because that's how I identify with him. In high school, I was like that. And I thought he was the guy who always takes a step back to think about the whole situation he's in and then make the smart decision based on what he's experiencing. Like, let's say, you know, when they encountered that lair, the very old lair of the Power Rangers, that's been around for like thousands of years.
Yeah.
Or probably millions. And, you know, he goes inside, he's like, what is this place? And he looks around first and he's like, I'm not sure if we should be here. Like, that to me is a smart decision. When you see a place that you've never seen before, you gotta stop and examine.
You get second thoughts on that.
I like the Air Power Rangers and everything. I like the Yellow and Pink Rangers, but they were too joyful and everything. And the Red Ranger wasn't as much, but still, the Air Rangers, they just wanted to jump in and say, hey, we want to experience this. And instead, the Blue Ranger, who I like about him is that he's like, guys, take a step back.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Who is your favorite Power Ranger in terms of the description?
Well, my favorite Power Ranger was Jason Scott, and mostly from his characteristics. I mean, you know, even though he did get in trouble for a failed prank by just, you know, putting a bull inside a locker room.
Oh, yes. Oh, my. That was funny.
Yeah, then getting in trouble by the police and now attending Saturday detentions with the other 4 guys that he met, with Trini, Billy, Kimberly, and Zach. But, you know, overall he, you know, besides the prank, I mean, from what we know, he was a football player. You know, he tried to, you know, make a change and it didn't work. And, you know, he could have made a lot of people happy, but the failed prank cost him his position and, you know, he just has to pay the consequences. But, you know, him being a Power Ranger, it changed him a lot. It changed him from, I guess, not pulling out pranks to, you know, leading a team and just, you know, how, you know, you need to make sacrifices in your life, and that's what I felt like Jason Scott was part of.
Yeah, I mean, he did make that prank. Well, in the movie it was funny, but not in real life. But it wasn't like he wanted to hurt someone, at
Exactly.
least. So I don't think the police should, like, get involved with that, in my opinion. So moving on, What do you think about the CGI?
The CGI was well produced. I mean, in general, with the costumes, I guess they kept it with the storyline. You know, the CGI was well planned out, and you know, it's not,
I really liked how the CGI with the suits was done. It was like crystal glowing. Like
yeah,
you see like a light reflecting on them when they're shining.
yeah,
I really liked the design. There were spikes on them,
yeah,
and the mask and the whole suit seemed a lot more real. And I was seeing some elements of like Iron Man in it and our Marvel ideas, which is what the suits are based on. That charred in the middle of their chests, Iron Man influence.
yeah. There you go. There's
The
a
belts
reference.
and everything else, some of that is a Spider-Man influence.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, at least they had copyright permissions, which was good.
yeah.
All right, but the last thing we should talk about is, what do you think the future of the Power Rangers franchise will be like because of this reboot?
Well, after the first Power Rangers movie, if you've seen the post-credits scene, you know that a new character is being introduced, Tommy Oliver. Originally, he was the Green Ranger, but then later on, he was the White Ranger. But overall, I feel like, you know, he should definitely fit in. Maybe he'll have his own story plot in the sequel. I mean, you know, we never know how it is. I guess we just need to see what's in store in the future and what's
Yeah.
in store for Tommy Oliver.
Who knows, but like the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the Green Ranger did come in later on, but eventually he became the White Ranger. Well, I forgot how it happened, but from what I remember is that after he became the White Ranger, he gained these new powers that made him even stronger.
Right.
And it was really good because it was a huge addition to the 5 Power Rangers because they got a new guy, and now they have a stronger team with more powers.
Exactly.
And I think that what would happen for the next film, probably not until 2019 or 2020, but I think what would happen is that the Rangers would have a new villain, probably a partner of Ree Repulsa. Overall, I think that Tommy Oliver is going to come in as the White Ranger pretty much. He'll meet the Power Rangers, they'll start to know each other, and they'll face a new threat. Pretty much the same old story, but a little different.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's what's pretty much going to happen. And I think as long as the Power Rangers franchise, and especially the director of this film, who did a really good job, would take the smart step again and do the same thing, but do something a little different, but it still connects with the plot line.
Yeah, I felt like what the director Dean Israelite explained. He pretty much explained briefly the whole history of the character. You know what their problems were, whether in school or home. But you know he tries to pretty much make sure the characters just learn from their mistakes and move on. And you know, as they're taking these kinds of challenges, they just need to know the basic steps.
Yeah, they definitely need to, and I think that overall this film just needs to keep conveying that lesson and convince people to follow this. Stop before judging another person. You never know how they're feeling inside.
Yeah.
And this type of idea where I got from was a friend of mine made a post about Robin Williams a few years ago saying, make sure you be nice to someone because you never know how they're feeling on the inside.
Exactly. That
Yeah.
talks about being self-sensitive to
Yeah.
others.
Yeah, it's a very important lesson, and even though you may not like someone, you may not like the way they look, the way they talk, or if they have a learning disability or whatever, you gotta be nice to them.
Definitely.
nice.
I agree.
No matter if you're a parent, no matter if you're a family member, no matter if you're a friend, it doesn't matter who you are or how old you are. Be nice to them.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
And if you see something that's going wrong, step in, make a change, and say, this is not okay. You need to learn from this.
Yeah, but in my opinion, I agree completely. You know, if you want to be nice to others, you know, the fact is it deals with if you're not being nice to people, then you know you need to make a change as soon as possible, because then you know wherever you go, people look upon you. I mean, pretty much everything about you, your behavior and how the way you act. So, you know, I think the most, you know, advice I can give is just, you know, just you know, hold the door for people. You know, say your please and thank you, and you will be on your way.
Yeah. And especially if you're doing something wrong and someone tells you that, it's good to take a step back and say, am I doing something wrong? What is it? So anyway, that is all for today, and I enjoyed having you on TV.
Thank you.
Come back anytime.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. So that's a wrap for today. I'm Thomas McGuigan.
And I'm Kevin Kowalik.
So, Terrier TV, I will see you later on, and thank you. Goodbye.
Good night.